Now, right at the start, I have to admit a couple things. First, I really haven't kept up with all the news and rumors concerning this movie. Not that it feels like there's really been all that much to keep up with, since it's almost like, until this trailer, Disney and Lucasfilm have felt reluctant to even admit this movie existed, much less promote it. And the only real major news we've had concerning it came several months ago when the initial directors, Lord and Miller, were fired and replaced with Ron Howard. Another thing I have to admit is, I haven't been all that excited for this movie, or maybe I should correct myself and say, I've been excited to get another Star Wars movie, but not excited that said movie was going to be the backstory of Han Solo, which I feel like anyway, wasn't something that ever needed to be explored, that this is just Disney and Lucasfilm foolishly thinking that this would make them a ton of money simply because Han Solo was in it, without really giving much thought to how some people might react to someone else besides Harrison Ford playing arguably the most beloved character in the history of Star Wars, and why they're giving us this story when the galaxy far, far away has room for so many other ones to be told yet. Anyway, the first thing I'm going to talk about, but only briefly because something tells me, even without having read or seen anyone else discussing this trailer yet, and barely talking to friends about it, because I like to give my completely uninfluenced opinion, that this is already a hot topic of discussion. But why is the Millennium Falcon new in this movie? Never mind the fact that it was briefly seen in Episode 3, because I suppose you can say that wasn't the Falcon but a ship like it. And never mind any and all history the expanded universe may have established about this ship, because, well, none of it is considered canon anymore. But just going solely off A New Hope, where we both see how old and rundown this ship appears to be, and by Luke declaring it a piece of junk, I got the impression this ship had been around for a while. And not only that, but it's so old that it's something Han has to constantly keep repairing just to keep running, which is more or less established in The Empire Strikes Back. And yet now it seems the ship might only be around 10 years old when we first see it in A New Hope, assuming that's roughly when this new movie will take place. Nevertheless, despite the apparent discrepancy, I'm just going to leave that alone for right now. I haven't seen the movie, so I can't and won't judge the story off some patched together clips from the teaser trailer. There could be another explanation for the Falcon being new, like that's not even the Millennium Falcon we're seeing in the trailer, but rather another ship just like it, or a newer version, that at some point gets destroyed after we've been led to believe the whole movie that it is the Falcon. But we're left speechless when it gets blown up, only to learn shortly thereafter that Lando has a ship just like it, and that Han had liked that first ship so much, he wants to play Lando for his one, and that's how the movie ends. Now, do I think that'll be the case? No, but that would be an interesting twist, I suppose, and it does show that we don't know how the story is going to play out. So I'm going to leave this topic by saying that if it is the Falcon, it does feel a bit odd to think that it's a new ship at this point. Moving on then to what I think the big question really was going into this trailer for a lot of people. Did Alden Ehrenreich look and sound like a young Han Solo? Well, in some shots, and I think it was mostly the hair, he did kind of look like Han Solo. Did he sound like him? Well, no, I don't think he sounded like him at all. The voice, in my opinion, was nothing like Harrison Ford, or what a young Harrison Ford would sound like. Nor did the way he delivered the few lines that we heard in the trailer really say Han Solo to me. Then again, short of creating a time machine to abduct the real Harrison Ford from the past to play this role, nobody is going to get it just right. It is, in my opinion, an impossible role to fill, which is why I've been so leery about this movie all along. And again, I don't want to pass any sort of final judgment here. Alden may do a fine job as Han, but he'll still likely end up feeling like an actor trying to play Han Solo, whereas with Harrison Ford, he felt like he just was Han Solo. And I know that might sound like an odd or ridiculous statement, but hopefully you understand what I mean. Harrison Ford's portrayal of this character, including his little mannerisms and the way he delivered his lines, felt so natural and organic, not to mention unique, that anyone else trying to play the character is likely faced with three choices. Trying to act like Harrison Ford trying to play Han Solo, trying to play their own version of Han Solo, or trying to find a blend between those two. And no matter what Alden does, I fear a good percentage of the audience is just going to say, nope, you're not Han Solo, and that's it. Do I hope I'm wrong? Sure, of course I do. I hope I love this movie. I hope it's a pleasant surprise. And as others have pointed out, the low expectations around it, thanks in large part to the huge expectations around The Last Jedi, is probably a good thing for this movie. Most aren't expecting much from it, so I think, or again hope, that there's this chance that most will not judge it with such a critical eye. then again, with this being a Star Wars movie, everything is going to be carefully analyzed and judged, I suppose. Okay, now setting aside those two things about Han and the Falcon, how did the trailer look in general? Well, pretty good actually. If this were a Star Wars movie with new characters, I think I'd be more excited and less apprehensive right now. To me, it had that Rogue One vibe, that this is a movie about real people, if you will, who live in a different galaxy and face real struggles and don't have Jedi friends with lightsabers to help them out at every turn. Well, at least they don't have them quite yet. In other words, as someone who enjoyed Rogue One, I'm again excited to see another take on Star Wars without the Force and the Jedi being more or less at the core of the story, which is an odd thing to say considering, for me, Star Wars is essentially about those things and the battle of good versus evil. Nevertheless, for Star Wars to survive as a truly profitable and successful franchise for years, decades, and generations to come, you're going to have to make and succeed with movies that have nothing to do with the Force. Why do I say that? Well, for the same reason I think Episode 9 will bring an end to the saga films for many years to come. There's only so many times that you can make movies or trilogies where the fate of the entire galaxy hangs in the balance and only a handful of Force users can save it before that starts to get a little old and tired. So you have to find a way to make the smaller stories interesting simply because not every Star Wars movie can be grandiose in terms of scope and impact on the galaxy as a whole, even though that's what each new Star Wars movie has pretty much always strived to do. And the reason why I think they wanted to make this Han Solo movie is because they thought it would be a chance to tell a smaller story about a character everyone already loves, which meant it would be their chance to draw in viewers that might otherwise balk at the idea of a smaller Star Wars movie, so that they could be shown that they don't all have to be huge stories to be interesting and exciting. Rogue One essentially did the same thing by using Vader in the marketing to lure in people and then try to show them that, see, Star Wars can be done and done well without Force powers and lightsabers. Well, for the most part, because yes, Vader did use a lightsaber at the end. In other words, these are completely uncharted waters for Star Wars movies, and using Vader in the first of these anthology movies and now Han in the second was no accident or coincidence when you consider these are easily two of the most popular, if not the most popular characters amongst all levels of fans, from casual to hardcore. However, I already do have one slight fear for this movie that goes beyond what people will think about the new Han or any of the other challenges this movie faces. That being that this is another putting together a team movie, or in this case, putting together a crew. I just feel like this has been the premise of so many movies lately that this is something they should have steered clear of. Then again, as I've already said, I'm not going to judge the whole movie off one line from the trailer. In fact, I'm not really going to judge anything here. I'm just going to begin to wrap this up by saying that I felt like, since the movie was announced, that this was going to face a great many challenges that, somehow, Disney and Lucasfilm seemed blind to when they decided to go ahead with it, and that this is neither alleviated nor reaffirmed by the trailer in any way. I also don't know that this trailer made me any more or less excited for this movie, which is both a good and bad thing, I suppose. Overall, I think this trailer was exactly what I expected it to be. It looked pretty cool, and it gave us some quick looks and lines from the new Han, but there's just no way to know how myself and the rest of the fandom will react until we see this in the theaters, until we see the new Han in action, and begin to learn what kind of backstory they've concocted for him. And yes, we were given some clues about that backstory in the trailer. His line about running scams on the street since he was 10 implies he's been on his own and self-sufficient practically his whole life. And his line about getting kicked out of the flight academy for having a mind of his own tells us he doesn't play well with others and that, in some respects, parts of his story from the old EU may be kept intact, which will likely make some people happy. But I still just can't help but shake this feeling that this movie has been kept hush-hush for so long because all these rumors about Disney and Lucasfilm being worried are true. As I said earlier, I think they got blinded by dollar signs and didn't really think this all the way through, or even bothered to maybe get a feel from fans about if they really even wanted this movie. And I think that encapsulates the whole Disney era of Star Wars thus far, a sense of disconnect with the fans, or this feeling like they're taking us for granted and have no idea what we really want. Not that, to be fair, I'm sure all of us fans know what we really want either. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you thought of this trailer and if it made you any more or less excited for the movie. And what were your initial impressions of the new Han? Leave your comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.